Hello everyone, welcome to a little bit of a trial video where I'm going to be attempting to make my own sweater out of this fabric. So I was in Value Village looking for some knitting supplies, which was a flop, but it wasn't a total flop because I did find some very cool fabric that was in the curtain section. So I didn't measure out how long this was because but it's a curtain, so you can imagine it's fairly long, and there were two of these. I only bought one. I think it was about $6. I wish I had the video to insert here for context, but you can take my word for it for now. Anyways, together we're going to be trying to learn how to make a sweater. I've never done one of these before. I've knit a sweater before. I've knit a second one. I wouldn't say I'm a total beginner for sewing. I have sewn together some bags, other clothing here and there, accessories, whatever, but I've never done a sweater and I don't really know how to go about this. So we're going to kind of be piecing together tutorials, watching them on YouTube, searching whatever I can find on Pinterest and the web for help. Right now, I think the way that I'm going to be the route I'm going to be taking is by using a sweater that I like, using that as measurement, and trying to sew that after I cut it out of this. Is that how you do it? I don't know. We're just gonna attempt this together. We'll see how it goes, and I will take you along this journey with me for now. So the first thing I did was lay out the fabric on the floor to get a better size of a better idea of the full size. I also found a sweater that I kind of liked that I thought would be a good reference to use. And I don't have tracing paper per se, but I figured that this paper on a roll, which we use for other art projects, would be a good enough size to use to measure out the sweater. So I traced the sweater on the paper, mostly just focusing on the bodice. I wasn't tracing the arm sleeves, and even the neck, you'll see that I alter it after because I don't like how it turned out, so it's kind of irrelevant here. And then I cut it out so I could use that piece to cut on the fabric itself. You'll also notice me struggle a lot while cutting in this video because I'm left-handed and I can't cut with my right hand, and I don't have left-handed scissors, sorry. So after I finished with the bodice, I went ahead and I started preparing the fabric to cut the arm sleeves. I wanted it to be about 18 inches across for no real reason, but just that I feared that the fabric being on my skin would be uncomfortable. To make a classic sleeve with a bit of a sharper cap height, I decided to do 6, 6, 6, so 6 across for the width, then 6 for the cap height, then 6 inches for the other side. Off camera, I had made initial sleeves that were too tight, which is why I ended up having to use the pleated part of the fabric in order to make the second sleeve because that was all I had left over. So I grabbed my razor and I unpinched those pleats. It wasn't as hard as it might seem initially. It was very easy and very quick. So once I had my fabric unfurled, I cut out another sleeve. The singer that I'm using is just the simple one, nothing fancy. As well as using a zigzag stitch, you can kind of figure out which one it is based off of the image here. Here's what the sewn edge looks like, as well as the part where my thread started getting caught. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It happens every single time I wind the bobbin and I start on a new project or something. It just always happens. For the sake of brevity, I didn't include all the clips of this, but the next portion is just me pinning, sewing, and so on and so forth. But the general idea, or the order of which I did it in, starting off with the shoulder of the bodice, I began sewing the left and the right side, leaving the neck opening alone. Then after pinning the sleeve cap to the shoulder of the bodice, I went ahead and I sewed that in as well. Then, after pinning down the undersleeve and the rest of the bodice or the body, I repeated that once again on the opposite side. You can sort of see the sweater coming together at this point, and that is clearly divine intervention because I feel like I was kind of just making it up as I was going along. I'll include the reference videos that I used in the description because they might be more helpful than I am right now, and I feel bad if I'm leading anyone astray. Now this is the next day, and I realized I wanted to have, instead of some sort of turtleneck, I would rather have a V-neck or have it like a slit that opens up to make the neck wider. So without any sort of measurements, I just folded the fabric in half, lined it up, and started cutting. I wanted to bind off the cuff of the neck with some cool fabric that I had left over. I thought it would kind of make a nice binding, so I cut some strips for myself, pinned that down along the neckline, and then sewed it in. Here is the final version of the piece. As of right now, there's nothing I would really change. I kind of like how distressed some of the edges are and unfinished, but that's just a personal preference. So yeah, pretty quick, pretty easy to make this. I hope it was somewhat interesting and you learned something along the way. A general tip I will say when sewing with objects or fabrics like curtains, etc., is to use the hemline at the bottom rather than simply cutting out of the middle. And this is because it'll save you some time, well, a lot of time and stress when having to sew a new hemline or finish off the bottom. I do this a lot with tote bags, but this is the first time I was like, wow, this works well with sweaters too. Alright friends, that's it for me for now. I will catch you in the next video.